for joining us today. I have the privilege today of being joined by some of our Office of School Safety staff, as well as Officer Adam Harnan, who's with the South Milwaukee Police Department, who is, I believe, a school resource officer as well. We're also joined by Dr. Jim Shaw, Superintendent of the South Milwaukee School District. And we are here today to talk about the vital work that Wisconsin DOJ's Office of School Safety does to help keep kids safe in schools in Wisconsin. This office was created in 2018 following the tragedy in Parkland, and the goal of the office is to work to help keep kids safe in schools across the state of Wisconsin. Over the past 5 years, this office has done really extraordinary work to support school safety efforts around Wisconsin. Our Office of School Safety has administered a significant grant program to help schools with hardening, as well as training programs. But it's also launched some vital programs in collaboration with schools and law enforcement agencies and other partners who are working to keep schools safe. One of those programs is Regional Critical Incident Response Teams. We are the first state in the country to have statewide Regional Critical Incident Response Teams that are trained to respond and restore psychological safety if a traumatic event happens at a school. There are also 2 evidence-based practices that are, again, evidence-based and shown to make schools safer that our office has developed. One is threat assessment, which they provide training on for schools across the state of Wisconsin. And they have a protocol for threat assessment to help determine if a particular incident could lead to school violence. Another evidence-based program that our Office of School Safety developed is our 24/7 confidential reporting system. That system, the Speak Up, Speak Out program, has received thousands of tips about school safety concerns since it was launched. And I want to provide a few examples of those tips because they really illustrate why having a confidential reporting system is so important. In one case, a tipster overheard a middle school peer talking about their plans to meet a stranger from the internet. For any parents out there, you know how terrifying that scenario is. Well, in this case, Speak Up, Speak Out got information, and then they assisted law enforcement with an intervention. They reached out to law enforcement, and then the middle school student ultimately did not meet up with the stranger. The child received support from family and school staff, and the Wisconsin Department of Justice provided additional resources for online safety to the school. In another circumstance, in the evening, a middle school student made threats to, quote, shoot up the school and harm specific students in school the next day. Speak Up, Speak Out contacted school officials and law enforcement immediately, and law enforcement responded to the child's home. An assessment was completed with the parents present, and the student admitted that they had posted a threatening video on Snapchat, and the home was searched for weapons. In another case, both a parent and a student reported a concern that a student had a gun on a school bus. Speak Up, Speak Out notified law enforcement and school officials immediately. The gun was found and secured. In another case, a tipster provided an image from an Instagram post that threatened that the person would die if they went to school the next day. Digital threat assessment was conducted, and that resulted in the identification of similar posts of concerning behavior. Law enforcement was notified and an arrest was made. Those are just a few of the thousands of contacts that our Office of School Safety has received. In over 100 cases, our Office of School Safety received a tip that provided a concern about planned school violence, a planned school attack. And of course, we don't know what would have happened in any of those cases, but we do know, sadly, that these tragedies have happened in schools around the country. And if even one of those cases would have resulted in violence in our schools, the investment that we have requested for the Office of School Safety would be well worth that investment. There is nothing more important than keeping our kids safe, and we need to make the kinds of investments that are going to ensure that they stay safe. Our Office of School Safety has become a critical part of efforts to keep kids safe in schools in Wisconsin, and we are asking the legislature to provide the funding and positions we need to continue the vital programs that office has put in place. Now, the Joint Finance Committee did not include the additional funding that we've requested, so far, and it's our hope that the legislature will revisit that. Just to put in perspective what a minimal investment the legislature has proposed making, it has authorized 3.8 positions for our Office of School Safety. The tip line alone is staffed by 9 people. So to run that 24/7 tip line and to ensure that information is being provided to schools, we need the resources to do that. We have relied on federal funding so far, but converting that to long-term state funding to support this program that helps keep schools in our state safe, I think is an investment that absolutely needs to be a priority for the legislature, and I hope they will make it as we move forward. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Trish Kilpin, the Director of Wisconsin DOJ's Office of School Safety.
Thank you. Our office was created in the response to the tragedy in Parkland, Florida. When school shootings occur, because they have continued to occur since that time, people ask, what could we have done differently? What should have been done differently? How could we have prevented this trauma? We know the answer to that. The answer is rooted in prevention, in intervention, in assessment. And we at the Office of School Safety lead all of our schools, our private schools, public schools, and tribal schools in these model practices. We know what works. When our office was created, we were directed to seek and apply for federal funds to bring model school safety practices here to Wisconsin, and we have done that. We used a federal grant to start the Critical Incident Response Project, making sure that if a trauma impacts a school, the interventions provided to that school community will get kids back to learning more quickly, reduce the propensity for post-traumatic stress and psychological trauma, and will help people recover.
The funding we have requested for the Office of School Safety over a 2-year period is less than 0.1% of that budget surplus. This is an issue where we need the legislature to step up and prioritize school safety the same way that parents and schools do across the state of Wisconsin. So that we're happy to take any
The
questions.
Office of School Safety is a pretty important part of training both police officers as well as school staff for threat assessments, as well as the Speak Up, Speak Out program. If it was not funded like this budget would suggest, it would be a pretty big detriment to a lot of the things that we do on a daily basis. It's my belief that it should be funded for the greater good. I'd like to introduce Dr. Jim Shaw.